Hello, and welcome to my Doctor of Arts lecture recital titled Chant d'amour de la Dame à la Licorne, a proposal for staging. I am Jarnicki de Carvalho, a doctoral student in voice performance. The research I have done on this opera is also related to my doctoral dissertation research, which involves the creation of a complete performance guide for the opera, along with the staging proposal for future performances. When thinking of chamber opera, many of us might know Pergolesi's La Serva Padrona and Strauss's Ariadne auf Naxos, for example. But we also should be aware that there are many worthwhile works that have not yet become commonly known. With this in mind, I would like to introduce you to Chant d'amour de la Dame à la Licorne, Songs of Love of the Lady of the Unicorn, a chamber opera for soprano, cello, and piano written in 1995 by Romanian composer Liana Alexandra, who lived in the second half of the 20th century, with a libretto by Belgian poet Étienne de Sadeleer, who is believed to have died in 2017. The primary objective of today's recital is to present a staged version of Chant d'amour de la Dame à la Licorne. Today's staging is based on my findings regarding the score and the libretto. The musical portion of this lecture recital will be presented after a 15-minute intermission. In this lecture recital, I will discuss my research findings and how they led me to interpret and stage this work as it is going to be performed tonight. But first, I would like to provide background information on the composer and the librettist. Please refer to the electronic handout for a better view of the images and texts discussed throughout the lecture. You might want to adjust the orientation of your device to landscape. So first, the composer. All literature found on this composer, her own compositions, scholarly articles, and others do not mention her last name. I will refer to her simply by her first and middle name, Liana Alexandra, throughout this lecture recital. Liana Alexandra was a prolific composer of 118 works, including symphonies, ballet music, concertos for various instruments, chamber and choir works, operas, and other genres. She also wrote 12 books on the subjects of composition, orchestration, harmony, and musical analysis. She studied composition in what is today the National University of Music in Bucharest, Romania, from 1965 to 1967. She also took composition courses in the 1970s and 80s in Darmstadt, Germany, an important center for compositional innovation at that time. The composer earned a doctorate in musicology and taught orchestration, musical form, composition, and analysis at the National University of Music in Bucharest until her death in 2011. Liana Alexandra was also the recipient of numerous awards and recognitions and was a member of several composition organizations throughout Europe. According to Romanian musicologist Octavian Cosma, Liana Alexandra's compositional style alternates between a preference for heterophonic, partially aleatoric textures to repetitive evolutional music, drawing on Byzantine psaltic monody and the intonations of Romanian folklore. Alexandra's music is based on minimalistic techniques, thus exhibiting musical ideas that evolve over time, with a particular concept of rhythm conceived along mathematical criteria. Still according to Cosma, other features of her style involve profoundly lyrical melodic lines that suggest meditation and euphonic sonority. Now, the librettist. Finding information about Étienne de Sadeleer is a challenging task, as he is an obscure author. It is hard even to be certain about when Sadeleer passed away. All research indicates that the year of his death as being 2017, but that date is always accompanied by a question mark. Extant information reveals the following. Sadeleer was born in Brussels, Belgium, into a patrician family established in Flanders for several centuries. Sadeleer approached French literature at the age of 20 and created the oratorio Threnody for Good Friday with Belgian composer and organist Jean Absil, who died in 1924. In 1947, Sadeleer's tragedy on the story of Herod was staged in Brussels at the Stokelijk Palace Theatre. After this year, the author devoted himself mainly to poetry and enjoyed success in Paris at Grund Editions with the release of his book Chant de la Dame à la Licorne, several times republished. In 1963, Sadeleer's De Laure a Desdemone, a cycle comprising 5 suites on the themes of birth, love, and death, was published in Paris. This is considered his most important work. I hope that I will be able to find more information about the librettist over the course of the research for my doctoral dissertation. Now, the libretto. The opera is based on the book written by Belgian poet Étienne de Sadeleer, which is in turn based on the series of Belgian tapestries woven from wool and silk in the style of mille fleurs, in English, 1,000 flowers, dating from the 1500s and currently located at Cluny Museum in Paris, named La Dame à la Licorne. Sadeleer was also inspired by a letter written by Czech poet and novelist Rainer Maria Rilke, in which the author describes his impressions of the tapestries to a friend. The translation to French of Rilke's letter is presented on Sadeleer's book, along with images of the tapestries. A note, the sequence of tapestries presented by Rilke and Sadeleer differs from the way they are originally exposed at Cluny Museum. The reason for this is, unfortunately, unknown. Now, the tapestries. Extremely rich in details and colors, the tapestries depict the 5 senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch, with the unicorn as its center. According to Catherine Burrell, scholar who has studied the tapestry's representational function, they reflect the life of Jean Léviste IV of Lyon, a patron who commissioned this work as a monument to his family. More specifically, Jean commissioned this artwork to honor his daughters, who were at the marrying age during the 1490s, and to recognize himself in celebration of social excellency. Sowley also suggests the tapestries revolve around medieval themes of courtly love, heraldry, and the glorification of the female figure. Now let's take a closer look at La Dame à la Licorne as a visual series. You may want to refer to your electronic handout for a better view of the details mentioned in this section. I will discuss the imagery in La Dame à la Licorne as a whole, explaining the meaning of the tapestries. I will also draw parallels I have discovered between the tapestries and the arias as written by Liana Alexandra. According to Geneviève Souchal, former curator of the Cluny Museum in Paris, they are sewn on a pallid red background strewn with flowering branches. Small animals and a dark blue tent can be seen among bouquets of flowers and 4 kinds of trees, among which dogs and rabbits frolic. The Lady of the Unicorn and an assistant are also present, framed by a lion and a unicorn, and given to noble pastimes that vary throughout the 6 tapestries. In this series, the unicorn shares with the lion the function of carrier of coats of arms, the red banners with a blue band and 3 crescent moons, as you can see. The lion is said to be a reference to the city of Lyon, where the Léviste family was located. The unicorn is a reference to a knight or male lover. This particular coat of arms refers to the Léviste family of Lyon, the commissioner of the tapestries. Let's take a closer look at tapestry number 1 in the opera, À mon seul désir, to my only lord or desire. Please refer to your electronic handout. This is the last one presented in the series, and is the first one presented on Sadeleer's book. Although it is similar to the other tapestries in the series, À mon seul désir presents a tent of rich blue fabric with golden tiers. At the top of the tent, there is the inscription, To my only lord, desire, along with a letter that cannot be identified. The lion and the unicorn hold the sides of the tent, keeping them apart. In front of the tent is the Lady of the Unicorn, accompanied by her assistant and the small dog to her right. The lady takes a necklace from the box that the assistant holds. Sadeleer describes a dialogue between the Lady of the Unicorn and her servant in his text, or at least the lady speaking aloud about her departed lover. Here's an excerpt of the text. "It is time, little sister, to tie my jewelry and his necklace of a pretty dog that he gave to me, like Tristan and Isolde." On the top of this tapestry, two storks can be seen flying. The libretto by Sadeleer also mentions them. He will return before the passing of the migratory birds and the stork who already swirls above us. The aforementioned text by Sadeleer returns a number of times during the opera. After number 2, La Vie, sight, number 5, in a postlude with cello and piano, and at the end of the opera, after number 6, Le toucher, touch, always with the same melodic and rhythmic content. It could be said that Alexandra is using of idée fixe in this context to invoke the return of the departed lover throughout the opera. White storks, a migratory species, are known in folklore as being the bringers of babies. Making a parallel with the text by Sadeleer, the mention of the return of the male lover before the return of the storks could have a double meaning. It could be interpreted that the lady is expecting a child and waits for her lover to return before her baby is born, hence the stork that already swirls above her. Or even it could mean that her lover departed to a distant land and that his return will take a long time. According to Sowley, this tapestry is the most difficult to explain within the series because the lady's actions can lead to different interpretations. The red gowns worn by the lady and her servant were very expensive to produce, thus they were only worn during special occasions, such as weddings. The tent may also represent marriage, as its figure can be found in other artworks of the Middle Ages with the intent of representing virtue or fertility, and marital faith and sexuality. The box held by the assistant may represent a gift given by the groom to his bride, from which the lady would choose a necklace in preparation for the wedding. The other interpretation is that the lady is actually removing the wedding necklace in preparation for the wedding night. Just a second. Now, tapestry number 2, La Vie, sight, represents the allegory of the capture of the unicorn by a pure young girl, also a common theme during the Middle Ages, according to Suchal. According to Sowley, this tapestry is also a representation of the pursuit of love and the balance between eroticism and sexuality and chastity that would represent a perfect marital love. The accompaniment of this aria is a largely dissonant ostinato in sixteenths for the cello, with syncopated block chords for the piano that may represent both the pursuit of love and the unicorn's gallop. In tapestry number 3, Louis, sound, the lady plays a small organ with the young girl operating the bellows. Sadeleer creates a beautiful text for this tapestry, with the lady commanding that the unicorn and all animals listen to her beautiful singing, an homage to her departed lover. Here's an excerpt of the text. "Listen to this emerging organ, to the respiration of the one I love. It is not a song of war, it is a song of peace." Sowley describes this tapestry as being a symbol of harmony indispensable in romantic relationships. It also symbolizes one of the most common activities of the nobility of the Middle Ages, making music. Liana Alexandra sets the ambiance of this tapestry to a grand recitative that combines fluid and soaring melodies for the soprano and minimalistic melodies for the cello and the piano, with aleatoric techniques for the instruments and trumpet calls that introduce the vocal line. In tapestry number 4, L'odorat, smell, the lady garnishes a crowd with flowers. For Sowley, l'odorat represents another common motif in the iconography of love of the Middle Ages, the flower garland, one of the most popular romantic gestures, and also a representation of engagement and marriage. Sadeleer evokes a vivid springtime imagery in his text, which is set to a lightweight waltz in which dissonant chords create an aural atmosphere that enhances the dance-like effect of this aria. The cello presents an elegant inner melody as well. At the end, an excerpt of the recitative motive of number 3, Louis, is reintroduced. In tapestry number 5, Le Goût, Taste, the lady has a parakeet on her left fist and draws what seems to be food from a large chalice her assistant holds in front of her. Her little dog is sitting on the train of her dress. According to Sally, the parakeet symbolized a young lover. The chalice could be interpreted as a wedding goblet. Although it is hard to infer the contents of it, Sally states that it was common to have the most fragrant spices being offered in chalices as a token of esteem between friends and lovers. Here's an excerpt of the text. Beautiful blind bird, beating their wings. If you fly away, the sparrow hawk is there to kill you. And all the fruits that I picked for his return will have a taste of earth. Lastly, in Le Toucher, Touch, the lady holds the banner herself with her right hand, while she touches the horn of the unicorn with the left. All animals wear a collar. On the left, close to the banner, a monkey is chained. Here's an excerpt of Sadeleer's text for this aria. Unicorn under my palm, as smooth as your forehead. Unicorn under my palm, as pure as the sand of time that separates us. The cross of your sword, always between the two of us, is found. O my love, my recumbent, my only lord, I would raise my unicorn that it pierces me in the heart. Even though this tapestry is filled with erotic suggestiveness, according to Sally, as the lady grasps the unicorn's erect horn, a phallic symbol that was common in the iconography of love of the Middle Ages, Sadeleer sets a text that is filled with sorrow for a lover that will no longer return. Recumbent refers to a sculpture of a figure lying down. These sculptures were placed atop tombs of medieval nobility. Please refer to your electronic handout for an image of the recumbent. After this entire introduction, one could ask, why is a lecture recital about staging a chamber opera being presented? This project was born when I found the handwritten score of this opera in 2018, while researching repertoire for my all-women composer Doctor of Arts recital. Part of my overall research interest is to draw attention to works written by women composers, often overlooked and even forgotten amid the canon of classical music, despite being extremely prolific and as accomplished as their male counterparts. After some research, I discovered that Liana Alexandra's works are mostly celebrated in Romania only, a legacy that is maintained by Șerban Nichifor, composer, cellist, and Liana's surviving husband. I also discovered that both opera and libretto were based upon a well-known work of art, which motivated me to further my research on this opera. Although the composer refers to her work as being an opera, Chant de la Dame à la Licorne is written for a chamber trio, not an orchestra. In addition, the score does not bring the staging directions normally expected from an opera. With so little information provided, a vocalist might be completely oblivious to the existence of the tapestries or of the letter written by Rilke. The singer could simply translate the score to English and arrive to the conclusion that this work is about a romantic relationship between a man and a woman, in which the man is only present at the end when he is found at his tomb. Thus, this opera could simply be performed as a chamber work. In consultation with Nichifor, I found that Liana Alexandra did not indicate staging directions in the score to give more freedom to the performers. Nichifor also mentioned that the original score is only referential, and that performers' licenses can be accepted as long as they are in accordance to the spirit and text of the score. Thus, I decided to investigate the rich historical context behind the musical score and its libretto to obtain valuable information that would aid in proposing a staged version of this opera. The imagery and historical background of the tapestries are worth considering while studying the score in depth, since several elements depicted in them are mentioned in the text heading. In addition, the visual element of having the tapestries themselves exposed on stage may aid in providing the audience with more context regarding the libretto, making the musical choices made by the composer more readily understandable. The conclusions I drew from all the aforementioned were that I could move with the idea of staging this work using the tapestries to aid with the narration of a love story, one that is very similar to a song cycle with a storyline that arrives at some form of resolution, such as Frauen Liebe und Leben by Robert Schumann or Die schöne Müllerin by Franz Schubert. In the process of creating the staging, I recalled my previous experiences with Manuel de Falla's Master Peter puppet show, an opera based on Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, to be staged by a puppet theater. Please refer to your electronic handout for a picture of this production. In this production, I was not an operatic singer, at least not in the strict sense of having my own body portraying a character, real or imaginary. Rather, my presence on stage was simply to give my puppet, the narrator, a voice. My vocalism was the vehicle used by the puppeteers to give life to El Trujaman. My intentions are very similar in staging this opera. Instead of simply being a vocalist and presenting this opera as a chamber work, I want to become the Lady of the Unicorn, not as a body in a costume with props and scenery around me, but as a performer who will interact and give voice to the character and to the tapestries without overshadowing their imagery. The staging will involve the following elements: the 6 tapestries, arranged on a stage in a similar semicircle disposition as they were exhibited at Cluny Museum in 2008, upstage left. This will be done so the audience experiences the sensation of viewing the tapestries as being part of one single work of art, being able to connect their imagery with the libretto by Sadeleer. The instruments, cello and piano, placed upstage right. All performers will be wearing clothes in neutral colors, such as black, and stage lighting. Over the course of the musical performance, I will walk from one tapestry to the other, standing beside them and interacting with them as needed, given the context provided by the libretto and the tapestry. In each aria, the Lady of the Unicorn narrates the development of her story, portraying different emotions according to the storytelling. In Seul, désir, number 1, sadness and resignation towards the departure of her lover fill her heart, although there is a glimpse of hope that he will return from war before the birth of her child. In La Vie, number 2, she is drawn to her memories of the first interactions with her lover and how much she wishes to capture his attention, anxious but hopeful that he feels the same. The pursuit of love is described, and the unicorn represents the knight and lover who is now away. In Louis, the lady calls all animals to listen to her singing beautiful melodies, exalting her lover and his possible return. In L'Odorat, number 4, the lady reveals her infatuation with her knight, emphasizing the crown of flowers she is making for her engagement, describing returned interest between lovers. In Le Goût, number 5, the lady sings soaring, heartfelt melodies to the parakeet in her hand, symbolizing that she is singing to her young lover, one that may no longer return alive from war. During the postlude that leads to Le Toucher, the lady will be reminded once more of her current situation, with her lover being far away. To symbolize the revisit to her entire story, I will walk from the first tapestry to the subsequent, until approaching the last one in which the departed lover is found to be dead, symbolized by the figure of the recumbent on Sadeleer's text. The recitative melody from Louis, played by the cello, is a feigned symbol of hope, played in C major. The last measure of the aria leads to the parallel minor key of Le Touché in Attacca, confirming that the night has died, as the first measures of the following aria with a repeated low C at the piano symbolize funeral bells. Finally, in Le Touché, the relationship comes to an end with the death of the knight and the return of the first theme of the opera. Now a widow, the lady says loudly, "I would raise my unicorn, that it pierces me in the heart," in a desperate exclamation. The opera ends with the lady singing the first theme and one of the first phrases of the opera. "My only desire is to be the one for whom one dies," implying that now that her lover is no longer alive, she would rather join him in death. This narrative is woven together using idée fixe, minimalism, fluid recitatives, aleatoric music, and extended techniques that create unique sound combinations. We will now take a 15-minute intermission for the stage setup. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please feel free to come on stage during the intermission so you can observe the tapestries in more detail if you feel comfortable doing so. Images of the tapestries are available on your handout, along with translations of Sadeleer's libretto and a link to the translation of Rilke's letter. You may consult them as you wish. Thank you.
le seul de la mer. Licorne dont il te sert pour me défendre et pour virginal, sculpté par la force d'un vague. Cheval, au blanc cheval, attelé à mon âme, car il me l'a donné pour les rester fidèles, sorti de l'arche Noé. Oh, surtout framboise, cette coquille de tourmente, cheval, au blanc cheval. Mais tout n'a pas besoin de ces miroirs, détourne-toi et de tes yeux apprivoisés, il reviendra avant que passent les oiseaux migrateurs et la cigogne que déjà tourbillonne au-dessus de nous, et la cigogne que déjà tourbillonne au-dessus de nous. Ah, mon seul désir d'être celui pour qui je voudrais mourir, pour qui je voudrais mourir. Écoutez aussi, cheval, ô doux cheval, et vous regarde, ci è courage, toi, lion griffon, et si que la griffe d'amour. Écoutez cet orgue de la respiration de celui que j'aime. Ce n'est pas un chant de guerre, ce n'est pas un chant de guerre. Tu Écoutez cet orgue de la respiration de celui que j'aime. Ce n'est pas un chant de guerre, ce n'est pas un chant de paix.
ma licorne, qu'elle me perce le cœur.
Il reviendra avant que passent les oiseaux migrateurs et la cigogne que déjà tourbillonne au-dessus de nous, au-dessus de nous. Et la cigogne que déjà tourbillonne au-dessus de nous, au-dessus de nous. Oh, mon seul désir d'être là, c'est lui.